What's up, black powder fans on YouTube? Today we're going to go over why SliXshot nipples or cones are far superior to the standard factory cones that you have. I'm going to go over the specs, the dimensions, all the pros and cons of each, and hopefully you're going to like it and it'll change your mind on what you use going forward, and hopefully it will make all of your cap jam problems go away. Let's get to it. Alright guys, let's talk about cones or nipples with your black powder revolvers. On the left hand side here I have the factory nipple that came off of a Pieta, and it would basically look the same for any birdie. And then I have the replacement part for the Pieta from SliXshot nipples, and you might look at these and be like, okay, what's the big deal? What's the difference? This one's stainless, this one's black, who cares? There are about 6 functional reasons why the SliXshot nipple is far superior to the factory one. And you might scoff at it when I go over the numbers and whatnot, because I have to measure a lot of things in millimeters, but in fractions of millimeters. But when you add up and you patch up all of these 1%ers, these 2%ers, all together, you get a far superior product with the SliXshot nipples. This is not a paid endorsement or anything like that. I don't have an affiliate link, but these are a game changer with shooting black powder revolvers if you don't already have them. Let's get into the specs now. As you can see, we're going to take a look first at the factory nipples, and I have here the measurements laid out at the top diameter, the top of the nipple here across from this side. It's kind of hard to do with just my finger. From this side over here to this side at the top, it's 4.01 millimeters. At the base, the very bottom here where the cap could possibly touch, if you had one that was long enough, that is going to be 4.4 millimeters. The touch hole size in the middle for the flame to go down all the way through to the powder, that's going to be a number 15 acetylene torch tip cleaner, and that would be at 0.035 inches. That's the best I could do to measure that touch hole because I don't have anything that can get in there. I used calipers for all of these measurements. And then the total length, which isn't that important yet, is going to be 13.72 millimeters. The SliXshot nipples, on the other hand, the diameter at the top is actually wider, 14.1 millimeters, almost a whole tenth of a millimeter longer across. The base is still 14.4. The touch hole size is slightly smaller at 0.032 inches, so the next acetylene torch tip cleaner down. And then the total length is 13.12 millimeters. This is going to be deceiving later, and we'll get to that. Alright, so what can we gather from all of the specs here? Just keep in mind that whatever cap you choose to use, these are all going to be the same size. So if you have the same size cap, which wants to fit snugly on these cones or these nipples, if you have one that's wider, if they have the same base size at the very bottom of the shank here, but you have a wider one for the SliXshot nipple instead of the factory one, the inside wall of the cap is going to come into contact with the outer wall of the nipple or cone faster, and so therefore you'll have more friction with the surface area touching each other. So as you can see, when this goes on, it goes about 2/3 of the way down the nipple before it even starts to get friction. This one goes about half, and it's already hitting friction. So just think of putting a hat on somebody's head. You have 2 different size heads and you have the same size hat. If somebody has a big head, the hat is going to fit much tighter than somebody with a smaller head. So when we think about that this way, it's going to be less chance for the cap to fall off, especially when firing, and you get that recoil effect. If you have a loose fitting cap, that'll pop right off. That's something you don't want to happen. Now what I also love is if you look at the inside of this, if I can focus well enough, check out those rims where the touch hole goes down. Okay, you can see the touch hole here is slightly wider than this one, but I'm talking about the chamber before it gets through the touch hole. This one has a much thinner rim. This one has a much thicker rim. So you have the combustible ingredients on the inside of this cap laying there, and when this is pressed down on top of the nipple or the cone, this SliXshot nipple allows that much wider area on the inside of there before it even gets down to the touch hole for the flame to do its thing. This presses just along the inner rim of the cap, right at the top there. This one though, look how thick that is. That is going to block about 1/3 of the surface area of the combustible material right there in the cap. So this is going to sit there, but really just the inner circle of that cap is going to be able to combust down and do its thing through there. Is that proven to be an actual thing? I don't know, but I think just by glancing at it, that definitely allows the flame more potential to do its thing in the factory nipple instead of the SliXshot. But then you can argue this one has a wider touch hole than this one, so this one would be better. I would say this one gives the flame more room to do its thing, and there's such a minuscule difference between them, it's negligible. But what we do have, because this one's wider, is we have the blowback effect. So this will be the factory nipple. After you fire, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. You're going to have blowback going this way as the round ball or whatnot flies out this way with the igniting powder. Some of that powder, that pressure is going to push back through the nipple. With a factory nipple, it's got one touch hole that goes through, and all of that pressure is going to hit against the cap. And if you look at any slow motion footage of people shooting black powder revolvers, the hammer actually will be propelled back with the force of that. So the pressure will hit this, it'll blow the cap back, lift the hammer off of the cap momentarily, and that cap has a big potential to blow right down through here between the hammer and the action and get caught up, and you'll have a cap jam lots and lots and lots of times. If you've used these factory nipples, you know what I'm talking about. SliXshot nipples, though, what makes these so awesome is these vent holes. You got one on each side. So what that allows to happen is you get that same blowback, but at the same time you're getting pressure hitting the cap here, but it's also losing lots of pressure as it blows out the side walls of the cap. This causes the cap to deform predictably and consistently every single time. This one can shatter, this one might stay on, this one might blow into 5 different pieces or whatnot. This one, because it does this, it blows out. I will show a picture, I'll put an overlay here, but you'll see that the two flaps will be pried out of the cap. The other two sides, where there are no vent holes, are going to stay locked right onto the cap. And then that'll reduce the pressure hitting the hammer, so the hammer is less apt to fly back. And then the cap deforms consistently every time, but it still grips on two sides onto the nipple. The other two sides flare out, relieving that pressure. And you are much less prone to have cap jams. I've shot hundreds of rounds with the SliXshot nipples, and I've had one that I can remember, maybe 2 cap jams since I switched to these. So they are a definite game changer. You'll have far less stress. Okay, one little thing is just, that it's stainless, so it's much easier to see where you have corrosion and residue. Because it's stainless doesn't mean that you don't get away with not cleaning it. You just get to see much easier where the dirt and grime and fouling is than you do on the black one. Okay, the last point is I showed you here that the SliXshot nipple actually total height is much less. It's almost 0.5 millimeter less than the factory one. But when you actually put these in, as you can see, I have this loaded up with SliXshot nipples except for one. I put a factory one in there. Check that out. The factory one, you can see a big gap between the top of the nipple and then the top of the cylinder. You got that daylight there between my finger and the nipple. If you slide this over, the SliXshot nipples are flush with the top of the cylinder. So what does that mean? Okay, let's take a look at some measurements. When I measured from this part of the cylinder here, the face here, to the very top of the factory nipple, I get a measurement of 42.41 millimeters. When I do the same measurement here, but to the top of the SliXshot nipple, I get 42.86 millimeters. So that's pushing a 0.5 millimeter difference. And where this comes into play is, imagine the hammer falling down. It's at its greatest tension when it's pulled back, and it needs to slam forward to go in its relaxed state. It has to travel further, and it's at a more relaxed state of rest when it hits the factory nipple, because it has to travel an extra 0.5 millimeter before it hits that cap and ignites it. When it hits the SliXshot nipple, it has still a 0.5 millimeter more tension on it that it wants to fall, but it can't. And I believe, again, it's just what I'm arguing here, but it could be very negligible. But again, it's the 1%ers, the 2%ers that you patch up here. When the hammer hits the SliXshot nipple early, it actually still has a little more tension, which has less chance for blowback because it has more tension here and it's under more tension than it is when it's here. So when it's at the full end of its travel with the factory, it's more apt to blow back a little bit because it's in a fully relaxed state. This still has a 0.5 millimeter more tension. It's negligible, but again, it's those 1%ers. So when it hits the SliXshot nipple a little early, it still has a potential to fall another 0.5 millimeter that it's not allowed to do. So it's just less chance for that hammer to blow back, just a slight amount. Combine that with the vent holes on the side of the SliXshot nipples and everything else. There go your cap jams, guys. Alright, and the final thing before I let you go, let's just talk about the caps really quick. I'm not sure what the website says now, but when I first bought these SliXshot nipples, it said that it recommends the Remington number 10, so I invested heavily in those before the global thing shut down and whatever I can't talk about on YouTube, but I invested in a bunch of these. I have since then bought these just out of curiosity to see, do these fit as well, the CCI number 11s, and they absolutely do. So on here I have the CCI number 11. I've actually never shot the SliXshot nipples with the CCI number 11s yet. I just bought these, but they fit very, very securely. I cannot get that cap off by hand. You might have read forums that say, you know, you got to pinch them or whatnot, the caps, to make them stay. I'm telling you what, guys, that is on there good. Even with my fingernail, I can't pop that off. So that's not going anywhere. So you don't have to worry about, you know, getting new, say you have a huge quantity of CCIs, but you check the website and it says that it recommends these. Don't let that scare you away. The CCI number 11s work just fine on the SliXshot nipples, as well as the Remington number 10s. I have used hundreds and hundreds of these on the SliXshot nipples, so no problem there. Alright guys, I hope that helped you out with your decision making on whether or not you want to switch the SliXshot. I really think you can't go wrong for $35. It's going to save you a ton of headaches. Again, I have no affiliate link, or I'm not getting paid for anything with this. I will have the link below though, over to the website. I don't get a cut from that or anything, so I really don't care what you choose. But I can't recommend it highly enough. If you're into black powder shooting and you just want a smooth firing experience without having to shake the gun out or tip it up every single time you shoot or whatnot, switch to the SliXshot nipples. You can't go wrong, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for watching. If you learned a little bit and you appreciate me doing these measurements for you, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to give a like. Put a cap on that like button. And I appreciate your views and I appreciate your support. Thanks.